Hi there. In section 10.1, we are talking about integers. Our first objective is to identify the order relation between two integers, meaning which numbers are bigger and smaller than each other. So the first thing we have to talk about are what are the integers? The definitions of integers, it's the set of the whole numbers and their opposites. Now, we know this definition of integers is a set of the whole numbers and their opposites, but if we don't know what whole numbers are, or if we don't know what opposites are, then this doesn't tell us what the integers are. The set of the whole numbers are all the numbers that start at 0 and then increase in the positive direction from there. No fractions, no decimals. Typically, when we write number sets, we put them in curly brackets. So the smallest whole number is 0, and it goes all the way up in the positive direction. So those are the whole numbers. So it's all of those and their opposites. What an opposite is a number like 2 and -2. So for example, an opposite is something like 2 and -2. So 2 is a whole number, its opposite is -2, so -2 would be in the integer set. So it would -1, -3, -4, and so forth. This set is split between the positive integers and the negative integers. The positive integers are all the integers to the right of 0. So the positive integers are going to be the integers to the right of 0. Whereas the negative integers are the integers to the left of 0. Now, when we're talking about 0 itself, 0 is neither positive nor is it negative. The next statement, it says you can use a number line to visualize the ordering of the numbers. So what I would like to start with is just to sketch out a number line so we can see how this is going to be used. So if we start by sketching just a straight line. Now with our line, we will put our integers on it. So we start with 0 and we have our positive. I'm just going to count by 2's to make it a little bit easier. 2, 4, 6, 8. And then we have our negative integers to the left of 0. -2, -4, -6, -8. This helps us visualize the order. Now, if we are comparing two integers, let's say we need to compare a -6 and a -2. The number that's to the more right, which would be in this case -2, is always going to be the bigger of the two numbers. So anytime you choose two numbers on a number line, the number more to the right will be the larger value. Okay, before we start comparing the orders, we want to graph -3 on a number line. Well, you can see we could do it on this number line here, but we don't need to write that many values out if you just have to graph something like a -3. So what we're going to do in a case like this is we want to sketch our number line, and you need to have at least 3 tick marks on it. The number in the middle should be the number that you have to graph. So this will be your middle number. Now, you need to choose a value to the right of -3 and a value to the left of -3. Keep in mind, -3 would be someplace right here. So you want to choose any of the values to the right, and then you want to choose any of the values to the left. I'm going to use 0 as my value to the right because 0 is bigger than -3. And then I'm going to use a -6 to the left. And if we have to graph -3, we're just putting a dot at -3. So again, if you have to graph something on a number line, you need at least 3 values. You need the value that you're graphing, and then one bigger and one smaller. Okay, the next thing, place the correct symbol between the two numbers. So just to review, we have these two symbols here. This is less than, and this is greater than. It always points to the smaller value. So we have a -7 and a -2. If you need to, reference your number line. -7 would be right in here, and a -2 is right here. So since the -2 is more to the right, that is bigger. What about -3 and -5? Right, -3 is greater than, oops, kind of looked a little shaky. -3 is greater than -5. Good. So out of objective A, the key word that you want to make sure that you know here is going to be integers. That's one of the vocab words that you want to make sure you know is integers. You have to know what the integers are. In objective B, we're going to evaluate expressions that contain the absolute value symbol. We're also going to be talking about the word opposites. You need to know that one, and like we said, absolute value as well. So those are the three vocab words you want to make sure you practice with this section. The definitions of opposites. These are going to be two numbers, the same distance from zero, but on opposite sides of zero. Just like we talked about up here, we talked about opposites, 2 and -2. 2 and -2 are both 2 units away from zero, but on opposite sides of zero. So this first one, we want to find the opposite of 3. So what number is 3 units away from zero, but on the other side? Right, that would be a -3. Find the opposite of a -5. Again, 5 units away, but on the opposite side? Right, that would be a +5. The next definition that we have is the definition of absolute value. Absolute value is the distance a number is from zero. And the notation looks like 2 vertical bars around a value. So we would read this as the, back one more, absolute value of A. So it's asking us though, how far away from zero is A? And if A was a number, then we'd be able to answer it. So for example, evaluate. What is the absolute value of 7? How far away from zero is 7? Right, it's 7 places. What about the absolute value of -34? How far away from zero is -34? Right, 34 places. Now we have to be careful with the next one. We have the opposite of the absolute value of -12. Now when we go to write this, sometimes it's easier if we write the negative out front is a separate value. For example, here's our equal sign. If we take this negative out front here and change it to a -1, and then we write the rest of it, and we multiply that by the absolute value of -12. I'm going to keep that -1 out front here. And then we say, okay, what is the absolute value of -12? Right, that would just be a +12. What's a -1 times 12? That would be a -12. So you want to be careful. If you have a negative on the outside of the absolute value, you have to carry that along until you find the absolute value of what's inside. Okay, now what I'd like you to do, that's all the information in this section. Now what I'd like you to do is try the your turn at the bottom of this page, and then when you're finished, go to the next page and try those problems. When you're done with all the your turn problems, then unpause the video and check your answer. Okay, so your turn A. Find a number 2 units to the left of -2. I sketched out a number line here just so I could visualize it. -2 is right here, so a number 2 units to the left of it, so it'd be 2 units to the left, would leave us with -4. Next page. Letter B, write the given numbers from smallest to largest. We'd have -12, -9, 6, and 8. Letter C, evaluate. What is the absolute value of -2? That's a +2. What's the absolute value of 25? That's just 25. And what is the opposite of the absolute value of -2? That would just be -2. Which is the lower temperature, -12 degrees Fahrenheit or -5? -12 is lower, that means it's colder. And then E, we have to place the correct symbol. What I did first is evaluated each of my absolute values for easier comparison. So the absolute value of -12 is 12, the absolute value of 8 is 8, 12 is bigger than 8, so is greater than. The next one should be is less than, and the last one is equal to. Okay, if you have any questions about any of those, please do not hesitate to reach out, and good luck on the homework.